Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the ICT Educator webinar series for the fall of 2020. I'm Steve Wright, statewide director for the California Community College ICT sector team. If you visit our website, you can see our 10 regional directors and Nicole Sherman, who's the producer of this series, and our newsletter. Also on our website, you can find various pathways material and other prior webinars that we've had over the past year. We've categorized them for you now. They're easy to find. Of course, everything we have on our website has been edited, video edited, recorded, chapterized, transcripted with original PowerPoint presentations for your later use. A lot of people find it very helpful. 3,000 views to date, and our archive is a valuable resource for faculty. Coming up in the next few weeks after today's webinar, we're going to have a look at virtual labs next week, the NET lab, and some of the auxiliary testing and lab environments that can be had with that, which is particularly relevant in this COVID period. Following that, digital credentials. We'll be talking to Peter Janzow again, VP of Credly. He's going to give us an update on how those are going educational technology throughout the world. And then we'll hear from Peter Coffey, futurist with Salesforce, who will talk to us about, we asked him, said, what can you tell us about the future now that we've got COVID? He says, well, the future is 5 years early. So I'm looking forward to his perspective on that. Today, we're going to hear about a template for cybersecurity pathways, competitions, work experience that could be used across educational systems and employers in California. And here in the community colleges, we have about 80,000 students in IT-related courses at any one time, with about a 75% replacement or turnover rate. So we're very interested in how to capture more of that potential into the cybersecurity industry. The lightning rod or champion of this effort so far has been Dr. Keith Clement, and he's going to be our featured speaker telling us about the statewide task force and that sort of work. But going on in the background for quite a number of years has been the efforts by Dr. Marcus Geisler and Richard Grodegut to put together a California Community College IT model curriculum, updated, all CID and with plenty of rigor and everything, updated now for cybersecurity. So they'll be talking about that as well. Okay, Keith, take it away.
So my name is Keith Clement, and I am a professor of criminology at California State University, Fresno. And on the side, what I've been doing is I chair the Workforce Development and Education Subcommittee of the California Cybersecurity Task Force, Workforce Development and Education Subcommittee. And related to that as well, I do a lot of stuff with the California Interagency Advisory Committee on Apprenticeship, IACA, and I chair their IT subcommittee. For those that are not familiar with IACA, they are the state entity that is responsible for the development and design of new and upcoming apprentice opportunities like you would frequently find in IT and cyber. So, and lastly, I have the honor and the privilege of serving as the chair of the Public Safety Education Advisory Committee of the California Community Colleges. And so I am very familiar with and have been working closely with California community colleges for years, and deeply appreciate, Steve, your invitation, and would like to recognize many of your Cal Community College colleagues for their spectacular work in this area, like Marcus Geisler, of course, Richard Grodegut, Olivia Hereford, for example, Toby West, our friend Steve Linthicum, who recently retired, Nancy Jones, of course, and many, many others. I couldn't go into all of them, of course. So in any case, the Cybersecurity Education Subcommittee is co-chaired by the California Department of Technology and the California Governor's Office of Emergency Services. And this is an advisory board to senior California administration on these types of matters of cybersecurity and emergency management, homeland security generally defined. So when talking about the CCTF, we have a variety of subcommittees, and workforce development and education is one of them. Our purpose, of course, is to facilitate collaboration and engagement and partnership with cybersecurity and IT. And by industry, we don't only mean employers, of the private sector, but also public sector employers as well, mentioned next, working with government agencies and organizations. And what's really key, Steve, I think, is the development in tandem of IT and cybersecurity education and workforce development programs in combination between education and higher education. So we really are talking about reaching students as early as possible. Now, of course, in California, it used to be ROP, or regional occupation programs. Now it's called CTE, career technical education. Career technical education begins in the 7th grade, generally speaking. However, many of us in the tech and the IT cyber area understand that we need to be starting these things as early as possible. And if we wait until 7th grade to begin a lot of this, we're in trouble there. So we have a strategy that directs there. We, of course, work in combination with the education institutions that you wrote right there. And what I want to spend a bit of my time on is talking about 2 key California cybersecurity education workforce development strategies that we'll be talking about briefly here. That's what I would like to talk about. And it's my understanding that if you have not yet received a copy of that somehow, that Steve, that maybe this would be available on the site for their view, etc. So the first and the larger document, about 75,000 words, so it puts it in the thick novel category, 273 pages total. It was supposed to be 210, so there you go. The strategy develops a 15 recommendation, a series of 15 recommendations to develop a career education pipeline to prepare 50,000 entry-level professionals in California between 2020 and 2030. We were on a call yesterday from a fellow from the national organization at this level. He says that the entire US currently graduates 15,000 cyber professionals in terms of degree programs a year. That's national. So in any case, what I want to emphasize is the idea that we have a model that addresses all components of talent, right? We have people that want to be the CTO or the CISO of Boeing or Walmart or Amazon. And we have folks that are just happy to get their foot into the door and get a job that makes good money and supports their family, and everything in between, So with that in mind, we have to have this talent model that has 2-year, 4-year degree components. And one of those, of course, is a STEM-based degree program, heavy math, heavy science, all that kind of stuff, all the way down to what many folks are going to need or meet minimum job requirements for, embeddable, stackable certificate programs that are offered through the Cal Community Colleges or the CSUs or the UCs, theoretically speaking. Private universities, I want to certainly acknowledge private universities. I know the value of our friends over at National University and USC and other of our large, Stanford and other of our large private institutions. But embeddable, stackable certificate programs linked with 2,000-hour on-the-job training, apprenticeship, workforce development-based opportunities. So that would be the 2,000 hours, of course, is the equivalent of 1 year of full-time work. And that would be added on top of the education programs. So how do we do this, right? I mean, that really is the question, is how do we get this done? So through these 15 recommendations, some directed at K-12 education, some directed at the 2-year and the 4-year and the graduate programs and the industry recognized professional certifications, through coordination and collaboration, we are able to develop a pipeline that is what we call vertically aligned. So each program shakes hands with the education program that came before it and then shakes hands with the programs that come after it. So we're talking about middle school to high school transition, high school to 2-year school transition, 2-year to 4-year school transition, 4-year transition to 6-year. And I also want to say that that's the college preparedness track. We also have a career readiness track as well for those that, you know, don't need a 4-year degree and a bunch of apprenticeship hours to get to what they're looking to do. So this career education pipeline and pathway includes these various components. I don't really want to get into too much as we go down the list because, you know, you are the professionals in this field and you are the experts in this area. And so I don't need to talk about some of that, but I do want to talk about the development at K-12 of industry recognized certification programs. So if you have a chance to go see the California Cybersecurity Essential Workforce Youth Pre and Registered Apprenticeship Talent Model, that is a lot of words as it turns out. For those that want to see how this aligns from 5th grade all the way to a 4-year degree, you'd want to read this part of that report. But what is key is that we are getting kids into certificate and other types of programs as early as possible. And for example, in my ideal curriculum, and I put it all out there, so in the ideal world, a lot of these kids are actually getting their first certificate out of the way in middle school. And is it an advanced certificate? Well, obviously not. But it is getting them ready to get them started to get through. And actually, a second key component here, many of our IT and cyber students are shortchanged in a way. That is that they are unable to double count courses for both the academic side and the career preparation side as well. So it's called A to G curriculum integration, where we're literally developing high school classes that meet a graduation requirement as well as a career tech requirement. And obviously when they get 3 career tech CTE courses in a combined in a certificate program, high school students would be graduating with cybersecurity or IT or related technical fields certificates in those areas. And that is listed, of course, in great detail at the large statewide strategy report, as well as the essential workforce report that I just mentioned. That this has already been done for history, government, math, and I did a physics course with Tony Colson from CSU San Bernardino that many of you probably know in this space. And I think that he did the history and government of cybersecurity, and I did the physics of hacking course. Details are details. Also, a need to have dual enrollment courses. That is another way that our students in our collective fields are not meeting the full advantage of the educational system, where they are basically taking high school courses that count for college credit. And I could have swore I heard yesterday, Steve, correct me if I'm wrong, I heard somebody from a school district down south, Moreno Valley, who said they had at least one student in the recent spring, that simultaneously graduated high school and community college through dual enrollment. I don't know if maybe I had a Zoom error and I heard that wrong, but that's what I heard the other day. So 2-year associate programs.
Donna would know about that. I'm sure she'll share it in the chat.
Oh, perfect, perfect.
Yes, we have a dual enrollment high school program at Moreno Valley. I'm from Moreno Valley, and we have a lot of students who get their AA degree and their high school diploma at the same time.
Fantastic, fantastic, right? Fantastic. That's the kind of thing that we would like to see on a statewide basis. We would love to see the Moreno Valley School District's innovation in this area pushed out to every district around so that we can get all access, right? All students should have access to these programs, available to these programs. You know, that I'll talk about diversity and inclusion. Everybody needs to have access to these programs. So in any case, I don't want to talk much about the 2-year and the 4-year stuff because I know that Marcus and Richard are going to have a lot to say about that. And I don't want to talk about anything that they would get into, but also the linkage of professional certifications and training, right? So we really are talking about how do we do a better job of blending academic education programs with the professional skill-based work experience types of opportunities that students in the space need. I mean, you know, I like to use the example of you can read all about a firewall in a great textbook, but, you know, until you actually have done it yourself, it's still theory. I spoke about the essential workforce talent pipeline. I have already mentioned it. It's a supplement to the previous larger statewide report that directs and guides us on the development of a public safety or a pathway and pipeline in this area. But this report is actually interesting because it starts off with an analysis of the obstacles, limitations, barriers that our education institutions have to deal with in terms of IT and cybersecurity education programs. Like, for example, and I don't want to get into any details here, it's become increasingly clear that many of our college administration folks do not necessarily fully understand what we're trying to do around here. They don't understand not only the value of it, but what a program actually looks like. So I have a lot of college administrators that don't want to have a cyber program or information security or IT program because they don't want to set up and maintain the networks and sandboxes and the cyber ranges that they would need to give the students the exact hands-on skills that we just got done talking to them about them totally having to have. So in any case, that's an example of a barrier, an obstacle. But not only understanding the barriers of the education community, but also of industry, right? I mean, industry, for example, needs to work on collaboration with educational partners so that we can do a better job of understanding the current minimum and preferred requirements that they have for jobs that they're looking for right now. And I don't just mean a one-time meeting of the mind, so to speak. It is clear that this meeting has to be a regular event at the least, maybe every 6 months, to make sure that industry is able to effectively and strategically communicate to our education and our government partners exactly what it is they seek for workforce. And actually, I think an easy way to break this down is on the basis of specific occupations, specific IT or cyber occupations that actually correspond to an ONET code that we can thus analyze. So for example, cyber analyst or cybersecurity engineer, cyber technician, those are example bellwether benchmarks of occupations that we really want to keep a thorough idea and close contact with what they are actually looking for on a regular basis. So I do this for industry and public sector. A vigorous case for apprenticeship. A apprenticeship is a vocational model that is underutilized in what we used to call white collar positions. We don't call them necessarily white collar jobs anymore. We begin to call them new collar jobs. And so new collar jobs are blue collar in a sense. They are white collar professional in a sense, and they are management in a sense, simultaneously across industries, across occupations, across sectors, which is one of the reasons why we have difficulty in forming the educational workforce pathway that's of benefit. So let's see, model includes recruitment phase. The recruitment phase, in order to recruit diverse and inclusive groups, we need to make sure that when we do the recruiting for IT and cybersecurity education and workforce development programs, we actually do it at the community level, not the state level, right? We're doing it at the state level. We're doing it at the regional level. We're doing it at the local level. I'm talking about doing it at the community level, and I mean the neighborhood level. That's what I mean by recruiting and outreach, and that we are recruiting from all neighborhoods, and we are going to seek a diverse and inclusive workforce by going into a neighborhood by neighborhood basis, showing students and their families what they need to do to be successful in these programs through what we call cybersecurity education workforce development roadmaps. These roadmaps lay out the education and the workforce and how they make the combination, and what programs are being offered at what schools, and what positions are being open and where they are, all these kinds of things. We have a pre-apprenticeship phase, a registered apprenticeship phase, a OJT on-the-job experience phase, the 2,000 hours aforementioned, and a prepared workforce phase. And look, even a little smiley face, I guess that'd be phase number 6. So because of COVID-19 pandemic response, we are working on an emergency basis on at least 2 certifications right now. The first is to support our small and medium-sized businesses, and the second is life science, but I want to include, in terms of life science, to be health and medical as well. Those are 2 industry sectors that are being very hard hit by COVID-19, like many of our industry sectors, economy and workforce have been done. Key discussion points: how do we engage with the approximately 90 to 100,000 students in IT networking and cyber and California community colleges? And how do we make sure that all of those students have a open and available talent model that allows them to get to where they want to be in life? I think that another key discussion point is, what is a process by which we can utilize so that students can transfer and transition seamlessly from one education level to the next? Again, middle school to high school to 2-year school, 2-year school to 4-year to graduate programs. And I mean this on a statewide basis. There are plenty of lovely examples of a school here or a district here doing wonderful things. And what we need to do is find a way to transfer the knowledge and innovation of our digital leaders in this area to other parts of the state that do not have the same programs. This really is a statewide effort. We don't want to recreate the wheel. We want to make sure that best practices are circulated widely and the resources are available so that other schools, districts, campuses, institutes, everybody and their students can be better served. How do we align and link the K-12, 2-year and 4-year education programs, again, to serve all aspects of our talent model? We want to accelerate, again, the Cal Community Colleges have had an IT model curriculum. They have had a computer science AST for quite some time. We're talking here about how can we work on the 4-year school side to provide additional opportunities for all of those students across the tech fields, ITIS, software development, computer engineering. I mean, there's plenty of involved disciplines here. We really need to have a credit for prior learning discussion. Many of the key minimum and preferred requirements are found on the basis often of professional certifications, of which students are taking professional certification-like courses on our campuses. And we need to find ways so that they are acknowledged and provided support for their industry certifications in an academic sense. So credit for prior learning. There are, of course, other points like transfer and matriculation and degree program stuff. Those are details for later, of course. Questions or comments? And if you would like to see either report or interested in joining the Cybersecurity Education Work Group, here I am. I'm pretty easy to find, as it turns out. There's my email. And I don't know where I am for time.
You're doing
done.
well. You're doing very well, Keith. I think before we transition to Marcus and Richard, your presentation brings up a lot of points, and you talk openly about what we need to do and that sort of thing. I think when we look at this, we have to ask ourselves, where's the leadership coming from? what is the legislative mandate? What's the governor's office thinking? Because a lot of us have had these ideas off and on for many years. We've seen the technological change, the revolution, but then when we go try to change the architecture of how things work, so it's a brick wall. So how do you perceive this going forward? I mean, a lot of good ideas are in this room right now, but how do you perceive us breaking through the wall?
Well, Steve, that really is the $1 million question, right? I mean, we can have the best curriculum, we can have the most rigorous statewide cyber competition league at all levels, semifinals and quarters, and a governor's California Golden Cup for the winner. I mean, there's a lot of those things we can do. But yes, let's talk about commitment. So I don't know, for those that were able to join us on September 2nd at the California Cybersecurity Industry Convening, one of the issues that we thought essential is to make sure everybody on the call and paying attention to these matters was perfectly aware of the position of many key leaders in the state of California on this matter. I would argue that if Governor Gavin Newsom has his Secretary of Labor and Workforce Development and Director of California Office of Emergency Services, Cybersecurity and Homeland Security advisor to the governor, and he had he had to leave, as you may recall. It is a difficult job being the Director of Emergency Services for the state of California these days. So who steps in on his behalf? We thank so much California Department of Technology Director, State Information Officer, Amy Tong. And so we also had Gavin Newsom, Governor Newsom's small business advisor, counselor to GoBiz, Governor's Business Office of Development as well, on the, assistant secretaries of esteemed California state agencies. We had all the right folks from industry, including IBM, Amazon, right? I mean, Box, big firms. And let's be honest, the reason why we wanted this convening to happen was to give everybody a sign of exactly how serious we are in the state of California on cybersecurity, IT, workforce development, education. I think 2020 is our year. Those two reports to be read and consumed at will. These programs exist. More are coming online. I think that the support is there. I think that about the only way that I personally would like to see more support is on the budget and the financial resources department. But let's be honest, with a $55 billion deficit and whatever's going to happen to education in the next couple of years in this state, probably not the time to be asking for a $25 million or $30 million infusion to do anything brand new. And that might just be in my budget analysis, but yeah, there you are.
Well, it just means we got to make a good case for it. Okay.
Yes.
Well, that's great. And you're certainly, I mean, as we said before, you're the lightning rod, you're the champion. A lot of these moving parts and pieces have been around the state for a long time, but until you got involved, we didn't have a common place to go. And you're bringing that together. And I want to thank you for everybody here for the work that you're doing and leading this effort.
Deeply appreciated, and I want to give a shout out to you and your California Community College colleagues that have been carrying the ball for the last couple of decades in this area. And actually, I do believe that Marcus and Richard and Olivia actually wrote the introduction to the 2-year program component of that strategy report aforementioned. It talks about all that kind of stuff right there. So I mean, it's in writing, not just.
I love it. We're going to turn it over to Marcus, I believe, for his presentation in just a second. So Marcus, you might want to get ready. But the thing that is unique about this situation, and I guess I love it, because technology has exploded in all these areas, and academia hasn't really been bad. It hasn't been wrong. It's just totally unprepared for things that move this quick. And what started off as kind of a tech job for someone with a tool belt has suddenly become a professional endeavor. And how do we deal with that? So it's wonderful, wonderful challenge. All right. Now with that, what we do know is that over the past, I forgot how many years, Olivia, you and Marcus and Richard have been looking at this kind of stuff, but a model curriculum emerged, an IT model curriculum initially, and it's been adapted to cyber, and I believe we've even got adaptations to cloud. And it's a core curriculum. It's very fundamental in a lot of our community colleges. We have a number of students taking these courses. From these courses, they can get certificates and industry certifications and that sort of thing very easily. We find it's interesting these days that a lot of the rigor that we have in these courses is greater than the rigor you might find in more popular sounding alternatives like the Google IT certificate or whatever. And we know that people are pulled by names and brands, and that's very important. But I think it's the competency of the California Community College system. I believe over 60 some Cisco academies and the number of students and the whole net lab and other virtual lab expenditures that we've made. We have a lot of, Richard, you brought out the point the other day, the number of people who are professionals already working who come back to the community college. This is where they get their training. This is where they get their upskilling. So it's not like we're just talking about newbies out of high school who need to get Tech 101. We're talking about a lot of high level professional stuff. So, but it's a mixture and it's all over the place. So with that confusion being the background, I'd like to turn it over to Marcus to go and make sense out of it.
Well, thank you very much, Steve. Appreciate being included and allow me to introduce myself briefly. For those of you who may not know, I am the chair of the ITIS FDRG for the CID process. So let me take that apart. That is the Information Technology and Information Systems Faculty Discipline Review Group. That has been was established about 7 years ago when the CID process first started. And for those of you who may not know what CID is, it is the course identification superstructure that was developed by the academic senates of both the California community colleges and the California state universities, with an invitation to the UCs who've been at the table less than more, but who've been there as well, to get together and find ways to share curriculum across the 2- and 4-year programs. And very fortunately, and thank goodness, that has also to a good extent been adopted by the K-12 system as they feed into some of our systems, and I'll elaborate on that in just a second. I'll also give Richard, who has been working on this FDRG with me since the very beginning, an opportunity to introduce himself here. Richard.
Yeah, thank you, Marcus and Steve. Thanks, everybody. Yeah, this has really been an endeavor of mine when I began teaching, was these pathways and in IT. It's been almost a 30-year-long kind of goal to have this happen, and so I jumped at the opportunity to serve on the FDRG with Marcus and everyone, and we've made a lot of headway, and just looking for the CSUs and that want to partner with us and make it happen. So thank you.
All right, thank you, Richard. And really quickly before I get started, more kudos to Keith Clement. We would not be here as a state of California with many CSUs now launching cybersecurity programs. Not that some haven't already had them, but the pushing forward, the driving of this effort squarely on Keith's shoulders. So many kudos and credit where credit is due. We wouldn't be talking about what we have and where we want to go if it hadn't been for him. There's certainly we're not at the end, and I'm not sure if we ever will be as our field keeps moving, but he deserves a ton of credit for this. So kudos from this end as well. I'll talk about the CID side as it pertains to community colleges and those with whom we interact, which again is our K-12 partners as well as our 4-year partners. But one of the toughest parts that we've encountered as members of the FDRG was that when we came up both with the IT model curriculum in 2015, and that's been finalized and implemented, and then later on with the IT cybersecurity model curriculum, which for similar reasons has not yet been approved, and it's institutional. It was mentioned earlier that things just move relatively quickly in the industry and relatively slowly in academia. we're in academia and we're oftentimes not able to keep pace. And so that's why we're looking at a draft curriculum for cybersecurity. But we need to make sure that this is all used across the different sectors. And let me first talk about the IT model curriculum at the bottom. 4 core courses, the core 4 as I'll call them, 2 electives, and then a math component. And then going back up, I'll talk about the IT cybersecurity model curriculum in substantially more detail, where we've got 3 cybersecurity core courses that I'll introduce in just a second, 3 electives, and then another elective in programming or scripting. One thing I'll be pointing out as we go is that the curriculum that was designed is compatible with the CAE-CD designation that many colleges are seeking, that only very few colleges in California have earned to date. I'll talk about that as we go as well, and the different components that make up that additional goal for many of our community colleges. So 3 core courses, and the ITIS, again, Information Technology, Information Systems designation within the CID process. The first one here is Computer Network Fundamentals. Talk about that in just a second, but fundamentally compatible with the Network Plus certification by CompTIA and very similar to Cisco's CCNA 1 course. ITIS 155 helps to prepare students for the Server Plus CompTIA certification, or if you're going to go with the vendor-specific side for some of the initial Microsoft certifications or Linux certifications. And then ITIS 160 helps prepare students for the CompTIA Security Plus certification, a bit more general, but those are the core 3 courses that the FDRG, along with input from many other academics and industry partners, deemed that those would be skills that every IT cybersecurity professional should have, certainly at the 2-year level. Beyond that, we've got 3 electives, and there are actually 11 possible electives that colleges can offer. But in order to offer a 2-year degree, associate degree, or certificate for folks that may already have other degrees, there would be 3 required electives to be taken of that selection of 11. And then we have a programming and scripting course for a total of what I'm going to call 21 plus units. And because, as many of us know, some of the programming courses, especially those in computer science, where we've had very difficult time implementing the ADT because of the high unit values of some of the science and some of the programming courses. But that's where the plus comes in. But this is actually a minimum of 21 units. It can be done that way, but at some institutions, it's just going to be more than that. So ITIS 150 is the course number 2, and I'll get to number 1 later on. I didn't forget number 1 for CIE preparation. But it also is basically that foundation, right? I heard a gentleman at Cisco at one of the winter conferences say a few years ago, without the network, there's no cyber. So that's, people need to understand how networks work. Now, can that course be taught at K-12? Absolutely. It is being, it has been, oftentimes with a Cisco curriculum. You know, have I seen it taught in the upper division at a CSU? Yes, I have as well, very interestingly. So one of the major components that we need to talk about throughout doing this is the coordination between what's taught where, and to which level, but that's 150. 155, again, server, hardware, software, technologies, course number 3 for CAE-CD, and that is, again, Microsoft or Server Plus or Linux. And then the 3rd core course is the Security Plus exam preparation. Notice there's an advisory here. We've been very careful not to implement prerequisites, oftentimes because of industry folks coming back in, but certainly if somebody were to take this course without having at least some background in networking, they would probably be at a disadvantage to be able to successfully complete this 3rd course of the core 3 for the IT cybersecurity model curriculum. Now, before I move on too much more quickly, you'll see the word draft on quite a few of these descriptors, as well as on the cybersecurity model curriculum. And the reason, again, that it's draft is because it is, I'm not going to say stuck in committee, but there has been a relatively slow process that we're dealing with as part of the CID effort. And I'm very happy to say they are forming an advisory committee. I was asked to become a member of that, and then that'll be one of my main tasks, is to make sure that the 5-year cycle that may work well for English and for physics and for history is probably not going to be the ideal type of review for a field that moves as quickly as ours, certainly in cybersecurity these days. Here you'll see the first 6 electives for the IT cybersecurity model curriculum. The reason that some of them are not drafts is that they're part of the IT model curriculum as well. So there's definitely a way to move from one to the other, and it's designed that way. We've got everything from additional Cisco courses when it comes to the routing, switching, and network security and automation. And then you've got forensics there. And page 2 of 2 of the potential electives that can be offered, again, all the way K through 12, all the way through the baccalaureate program, or frankly, even beyond. I'm not going to say that I've seen similar courses at the master's level, but I wouldn't be surprised, depending on some of these more advanced cybersecurity ops kind of courses, for example. And yes, the cloud very much is in here as well, not only from an implementation, but also from a cybersecurity perspective. Finally, and here's your number 1 for CIE CD. So we've covered all 4 courses that they told us for the IT model curriculum would prepare colleges for the core requirements. And this is some kind of programming course, as both the industry told us, as well as is necessary for many of the operations for folks to be successful. So we'll take not only the ITIS 130 descriptor, we'll also take computer science descriptors. We do know that students who are regularly advised into computer science, because that's oftentimes the horizon of many counselors when it comes to computing. They don't think about some of the other disciplines, but they know computer science. But then, some students may not find the need or frankly the ability here and there as well in calculus, in higher level math. And if you notice, by the way, contrary to the IT model curriculum, which had basically any course above Algebra 2 as a requirement, there's no math in this as a requirement. We recommend statistics because that's helpful in analyzing reports, etc., but it's not required. Now, why, again, do we have this many electives and this many options? Because industry needs may be different locally, faculty expertise may be different locally, existing other programs may be different. So we definitely want this to be as seamless as possible. Now, before I finish, a couple of questions I'd also like to address that came up at a meeting yesterday. And Keith mentioned earlier, how about this hands-on, right? This is all just theory. And for those of you who may be teaching some of these courses, the grand majority of them are implemented with substantial lab components. So the hands-on is definitely there, and that's where students pick up, hopefully, some of those professional skills as well. A lot of companies hire for attitude in addition to some skill, and frankly, a lot of them will hire for attitude and then teach the skill. So we have opportunities within our interactions, not only in the classroom, virtual or physical, but also during that lab time to make sure that students can interact. And then that question that keeps coming up, is a 2-year degree enough? And the short answer is, for many jobs, for students to get started, yes, it probably is. But many of us have experienced, and I've been a long-time professor at Cosumnes College as well, students who have come back and say, hey, I've got my networking degree, I've got my IT degree, where can I get my bachelor's? And we haven't had very good answers to that question. Some of our private colleagues, of course, with National, that was mentioned a little while ago, has been there. But boy, would we love to send them to our CSU partners. And it looks like as soon as they implement some of those programs, we should be able to do so as quickly as possible. One other thing that I would encourage, and there weren't too many CSU folks on this call, but I'll mention it anyway for the record, you know, even though we deal with 60-unit degrees, the CSUs can accept more than 60 units. So one of the big coordination pieces that I believe need to be handled locally between the community colleges that, again, can implement various flavors of this model curriculum, and our CSU partners is, well, you know, some of these electives that may go beyond the basic lower division requirements that the CSU might implement for a cybersecurity program. Can those skills actually be, with maybe a certain degree of validation, count for upper division credit, or at least beyond the 60, you know, up to 70 units? And that's where that local collaboration will continue to need to be very, very important, so that we can make sure that for every region within our state, for the local needs, and again, for the expertise that may exist at the CSU level as well, we've got solutions for our students that will allow them to easily move from one educational structure to another. And the same, by the way, goes for K-12 to community colleges as well. These descriptors do align to industry certifications, many of them do. And you know, if we keep using that to a great extent as a guide as to where we need to update them, but also as a target to which we need to work, then I think we're best serving our students. Richard, would you like to add anything before we open it up for questions?
Yeah, no, not much really, Marcus. Great job of kind of summarizing our work. And you know, like I said at the beginning, this has been a long time goal for me. And I was a teacher at Ohlone College for 20 years, trying to find a place for our students to go to as well. We are a community college, and that's what I really like about the model, is that it has something for everyone. It has a place for our students who have degrees, many of them, and come back to get training, to upskill, and it has opportunities for them to do that. It's also been a great tool to advise our high school partners and to inform our competitions that we do and summer camps that we do every summer as outreach. The content comes from the curriculum that's based in in this model. So thrilled to be a part. I loved having the CSUs. I'd have to say I did join the ranks of the CSU instructors, and that's kind of helped the articulation process a little bit too at San Jose State. So.
Yeah,
anyway.
thank you much for these comments and sharing the curriculum. I think it begs a lot of questions, like if this is the lower division, what does the upper division look like? And I know that Nancy Jones had actually addressed that and put together a model for the upper division. And increasingly we look at project management and management skills and all these other things, because if you have this as a base, then you know, the next is, but we don't know yet. I mean, there's a lot of wonderful things. And right now I'd like to ask Nicole to go ahead and kick off our final survey after you've heard everything. We're interested in this group's feelings about this kind of interconnection, and we'll take a look at those results and have any final questions. So does this cybersecurity framework and curriculum standardization effort seem like a good model to integrate public and private educational efforts for California? Speaking to Keith's thing, I mean, we're expecting everybody to say yes. I mean, the next one has to do with, do you believe the California Community College System IT cybersecurity model curriculum should be transferable to the CSUs? Yeah, I mean, this is kind of important. If it was transferable, how much do you think people would take advantage of it? I personally, you know, have been betting for a long time, if we could open up that pipeline, we could get a ton of people. And, but you know, people might say no. And the credit for prior learning, definitely need your input on that, because we have just so many people that get certificates off of self-learning or maybe something in the military or whatever. And there comes a time when technology advances this rapidly that the academic institutions just kind of have to open up their mind a little bit to the fact that there might be another more porous way to go about doing this. And so getting your vote on that is very helpful. So I think we're pretty much voted. Okay.
I love those remarks. I got to tell you, I have spoken to so many folks in industry, and not putting anybody down. I've spoken to so many folks in industry that seem to think that we could, on the education side, just make change happen overnight, right? I mean, I hear that so often, like we tell you what we tell you what we want continually, yet you still haven't done what we've been asking for forever. And it's like, actually, we appreciate what you've been telling us, but we need to do this in a more coordinated, systematic, and organized fashion on a regular basis. So you might have sat down with us in 1989 and told you what your firm was really looking for then, but a lot's changed. And Steve, to that point, I don't even know if a yearly annual review meeting is going to be fast enough to keep up with the way that industry moves so quickly. I was at a call the other day where they basically said, I was told the term database is over and it's now called the cloud, and that they're objecting to the use of the term because it's no longer accurate in their perspective, at least. That's how fast things change. Who would have thought that database or DBase or any of those terms is already in the IT museum of ancient terms, right? Wow.
Yeah, I think it's, well, and I was reading an article this morning about a job that a company had last year. They called it a data analyst or data scientist. This year it's called a cybersecurity analyst. And it's the same job, you know, and so it just depends on how the person is used. So the skills may actually, you know, are one thing, and then how this being used in the company and where the emphasis is another. And you know, in technology, we love to change names very quickly. I mean, I remember back when my days with the Verizon and everything, everybody's talking about convergence, you know, like we're going to put everything together. I don't hear convergence anymore. You know, IDSN, you know, I mean, just all these different different types of technology things, they change, and then the job titles change. And so we do have a moving target. So keeping in touch, as you said, Keith, with industry and finding out what they're calling it, but then breaking it down, disaggregating it to the essential skills. That's why I keep coming back to, no matter how much more everything advances, I go back to the work that Marcus and Richard and Olivia have already done on these curriculum skill sets. Nothing's really changed. You still need to know that stuff. So it's fundamental.
Olivia and I were on a recent phone call the other day where we're actually looking at the development of a menu-based curriculum skill set. And I see we have kittens. I apologize if they're distracting. They're tearing up my office right now. A curriculum skill set that is actually done on a menu-based motif where industry or occupational sectors or position types could actually pick and choose the specific skill competencies that work for them and their company, at their firm, at their government agency or whatever. And that it'd be very wide and open. So, and I do mean an a la carte menu. We would have some basic fundamentals that would serve as competencies across all sectors. I mean, we need to have people that can write oral communication, right? I mean, that's a skill for many people. But then we would have this other skill set that would be menu based, and they would pick and choose from which ones served them and their agencies and companies, and which ones did not.
Yeah, there was a question in the chat box saying that, well, you know, certain apprenticeships might not work in private versus civil service, and that's exactly the reason why we're developing MITCs that have the major job functions for each standard occupational code 11, like say for cybersecurity, but then the particular employer taking advantage of that apprenticeship could take a look at the job functions and the competencies associated with that job function and match it to what they want their journey person to be once they completed the program. So that's why I think the MITC approach to defining apprenticeships really, it makes it flexible for employers.
What's MITC, Olivia?
Minimum industry training criteria. It's a division of apprenticeship standards term.
I'll say one more thing looking at the chat too, and I'll go on record with this. A lot of us are concerned about curriculum updates and how long it takes with our colleges. And it's a problem, no doubt about it. But you know what? If I ever get castigated for, even though my old curriculum still says I should be teaching this, and I have actually taken the initiative to update the curriculum, and I'm teaching the newer version, then I would probably realize that I'm in the wrong place, because it can't be more important to follow what's in the syllabus than to make sure our students get current content. So yes, we need to do the work, the curriculum work, and trust me, we in the FDRG try to keep those descriptors as current as possible. But that said, you know, make sure that your students get the current knowledge that they need to be able to function not only as transfers but also in the job market.
Well, thank you, Marcus. And Keith, if we give you the last word, could you tell us what we can do to help you going forward?
You know, having conversations and meetings like this is exactly the way that we move forward. It is key that we have all size businesses, small, medium, and large businesses working in tandem with our K-12, 2-year, 4-year partners in conjunction with our government agencies and organizations. And when we are all synchronized and on the same page, we will have this problem solved. And otherwise, you know, we'll have this discussion in 10 years or whatever, right? So thank you very much for having me. Deeply appreciate all that you do, Steve and Marcus, Richard, Olivia, and all of you. It's great to see everybody today.
Thank you very much, Keith and Marcus and Richard, for your presentations today. And we'll wrap it up right now. Within a week, we should have this finalized, edited, transcribed, original PowerPoints, all the various links that everybody mentioned today, as well as Keith's papers on our website for your archival utilization. And thank you very much. So long.